The meeting, Recreation Trails Committee meeting to order at 3 p.m. on June 18th. And Secretary, could you roll call for us, please?
Until you're here, Matt is present online. I'm here, Chris is here, John's here, Elliot and Josh are absent as far as the voting members. So we got 5 of 7 voting members, so that would be a quorum. Our non-voting members, James is absent, Jeff is here, Shay's absent, Jackie Farmer's absent, and Patrick West is absent.
All right. And on the online audience, we have Lauren. Hi, Lauren. Ashley is on consensus. Max is on from.
I'm here backing up Lauren with the ECT.
Oh, okay, excellent. And we expect Ken Rovig on, I believe, as well in a little bit. And actually, you can tell Ken, he come on about 3:30 is fine. Any announcements? No announcements, any comments from our broad audience today? Approval of minutes from June 4th and June 11th. June 4 minutes. Any comments, questions, edits on those? All right, so we have consensus approval on minutes from June 4th. And June 11th meeting, notes from our scouting trip. On that, consensus approval on those minutes. All right, for Aisha, for today's agenda, quick approval on this. Couple of 4 items. Update on the status of the ECTA contract. So Lauren is going to tell us about his scope of work and how we're going to hopefully collaborate on that with him. Update on the Allen Fields master plan approval and what next steps we have to move that forward. And then item number 3 is report on the Allen Fields perimeter trail and what our next steps on that are, including the scope of work for surveying the property. And then item 4 is going to refocus and prioritization of our outstanding topics that we had on our agenda back early in the year, but then we rightfully focused on Allen Fields and then wrap up. Those agenda items seem okay and outcomes? Okay. So Lauren, you're up first. The background, after an agreement with ECTA, there was 2 tangible results that we anticipated getting from ECTA this year for the agreement we entered into them. And one was looking into the feasibility of getting Ho Chi Minh and Mukilteo designated as forest system trails, which they currently are not designated. And the second topic was getting us educated and informed on moving forward on adaptive trails assessment for village green belts and possibly some of our trails to make sure we can classify those as adaptive trails and invite adaptive users into Angel Fire. In addition to that, there are some intangibles, and one of those is working with a regional identity program, graphic program. You've seen some of the Enchanted Circle Association new logo, and maybe that's tied into that. So Lauren, I'll let you go from here. And we understand you've got a 25-minute timeline. We appreciate you getting on for us.
Hey, thank you. And yeah, some of this stuff we'll go through kind of quick, but appreciate you guys having us on. I do want to be sensitive to Max Moulton, who is here visiting us from Gizmo, who has been helping us with kind of that regional identity and regional sign plan stuff. So I would love to start with that and just try to take maybe 5 minutes 5 to 10, and Max can kind of give us an update on some of the stuff that we are thinking about. And to give you a reminder of what we're talking about with this, it's the idea that although we have distinct entities throughout the Enchanted Circle that have distinct management objectives, we have a regional trail brand that I think makes us all stronger and also builds trust among our community. If people that go to a specific area and they, see a trail sign that's recognizable, they know where to look for the information that they're looking for, whether that's some of the adaptive stuff that we're talking about here, trail difficulty, things like that. So in order to try to figure out how we can include all the information we need, create some individuality among each different entity, but then also pull it together in a unifying theme. We've, or I guess the Village of Taos Ski Valley got a grant to enlist Gizmo, and Max Moulton is here from them. So I'll just turn over to you real quick, Max, to give us a kind of a quick blush of what we're looking at.
Sure. I'm Max Moulton. Rarely am I in a room where I feel like I don't know anybody, but I'm not sure I know any of you folks. But my company is called Gizmo Productions. We've been doing work in the Taos region for 20 years now. We were working on another project with Lauren, and when he caught wind of the possibility of doing this project, we started talking about how we can come together to create this unified package that you guys can all voluntarily use to hopefully make your lives easier when it comes to sign layout, sign planning, sourcing materials for signs, and then how to appropriately use those signs. And so part of this process is obviously the design of those signs. Part of it is going to be putting together a document that actually outlines materials, how to properly use these graphics. And then the third unknown is how people are actually going to integrate these. And it's essentially going to be a boilerplate to hopefully make all of the regional areas' lives easier, so you don't have to design your own signs when it comes to putting up signs to let people know what trail they're on, how to get to trails, what that actual, trail kiosk looks like. What are you going to use when it comes to icons or emblems to help people understand what the accessibility restrictions are to a climb? And so it's essentially creating a unified voluntary design. The Ski Valley has seen these designs, and just so you know, this is very informal at this point. I just got back from a long trip, so cramming this in and trying to create Angel Fire unique designs was not on my plate this week, but I do have some of these other areas to show you so that you can understand how this could be scoped to work for Angel Fire or really anybody who wanted to take part in this. And so we've talked to the Ski Valley quite a lot about what they would require in order to implement these. We're trying to meet with all of the other regions, including you guys, so that we can get some feedback as to if a plan like this existed, how do we make it so that you want to use it? Because I'm going to really lean heavy onto the voluntary side of this. The most obvious reason for using something like this is cohesive branding builds trust with people. So if you're in Taos for a week and you climb Divisadero Trail and the Rim Road, and you see this sign and it is recognizable, and then you go to Angel Fire and you see a sign that is similar and recognizable, within the context of your branding, people are going to say, oh, I had a really great time on those trails. I know that this trail is going to be that same kind of caliber. It's going to make it easy for people to understand as well. I do not know. Do I have the ability to share my screen in this? I'm going to try and then.
I believe so. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I don't know how big your screen is in there. I'll zoom in as much as I can on these. This is, again, just very casual, high level examples of what we're working on at this point. This is obviously a version of like a kiosk trail. Part of what we're going to normalize with Lauren and the team is the layout of all of this information. So no matter where you go in the region, if everybody chooses to use these designs and layouts and fonts, everything's going to be in the same place. So you're not looking in different areas or looking for a different, trying to decipher different icons or understand different statistics about it. One of the big things that came up through this conversation with all of these regions was basically, we'll use it if you keep it simple and we can brand it. And so the key for us is to try to figure out how to make it look interesting while allowing everybody to have the freedom that they want. And so as you can see here, just in this kiosk sign design, the ability for each area to implement their own logo as well as their own color set is the kind of foundation as to the way that each area could make something like this unique. In terms of actual wayfinding signs or signs that would be viewed as you're entering a trail throughout, maybe in the case of like the village of Taos Ski Valley, we're talking about just implementing these wherever we can. We're looking at a few different design concepts that will allow the locations again to keep it unique, but also share information in a relevant manner. So I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see this a little bit better. Okay. These are the three working designs at this point. We're looking at die cutting signs, allowing you guys to, or allowing anybody who wants to use this to customize them with their colors and their logos. We'll essentially create templates for all of these and a boilerplate layout that the communities could use. Complexity in terms of post color and how the icons are attached and all of the other information is still part of this pending discussion. Oops, sorry. Here's a version of Red Rivers using Red Rivers logo, and then a variation of Taos County using a version of Taos County's logo. And then I'm actually going to stop sharing because Kevin just let me know he got one together for Angel Fire too. So you guys don't feel left out.
Up in Trail Salsa.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this was one of the presentations in Trail Salsa.
So we're just using the Visit Angel Fire logo in this example. I'm not sure, what your region would choose to use, but this was the easy one for us to track down. And this color would have just been pulled from one of the Visit Angel Fire branding materials. So here's an example of being able to make this unique for Angel Fire.
The nice thing about this is it could also be, Angel Fire resort trails versus, Angel Fire town of Angel Fire trails, and it would, could still retain kind of that unified. People know that within a trusted trail system.
Yeah, and building trust is really where branding something like this comes into play. And the branding gets really complicated because you're really talking about three different branding elements. Obviously, there's the Enchanted Circle Trails, how we're going to tie that in. When we originally started working on this project with Lauren, I think our ideal version would just be, let's brand everything as ECT. We use one color scheme. All the signs look exactly the same. No matter where you are in the Enchanted Circle region, you see a sign, you know exactly what it is. But as we continue to have these discussions with regions, realizing we need to expand that out so that they can have their own uniqueness, we realized that a priority for most of the villages and areas is going to be able to be branded to their specific thing. I imagine, again, it's all voluntary. And so whether or not Angel Fire Resort wants to take part in this comes down to whether or not we make this easy enough for them to use, so that they don't feel like they need to go and create their own designs. So the ability to tie the Enchanted Circle Trails in is one element of that branding, because people are going to see this element. They're going to say, oh, that's part of the ECT. ECT can develop materials outside of all of this that tie everything in together so that there's more of a regional view of all of the trails that exist. And that'll help build trust for people. And then, of course, just making the sign a unique shape is going to be a key element in that branding as well, because this is going to be the type of thing that actually grabs people's eyes. And part of that fun is actually allowing each of the regions to use their own bold color to make it pop.
What
Got a
I
question
thought, go ahead.
on the branding. Some of the examples you gave were trails that were in the national forest, and they were I think some of them were branded Red River, some Taos County. So what branding rights do local jurisdictions have over trails like for instance, around here, we've got the Elliott Barker Trail and the Paulo Plachado Pass Trail that are in the National Forest. And I mean, how would they be branded?
So what it comes down to from our brief dive into that is it depends on where the sign is placed. And so there are elements of this that are going to be far more complicated than the current grant can cover. And so you're bringing up the obvious point of, is the Forest Service going to let this sign be on Forest Service land? Another major one is if we're trying to put signs on NMDOT, there has to be a whole specific layer that or set of elements that we follow in order to meet their guidelines, and it still needs to be approved. Or you can essentially, as many other states and locales have done, lobby to the NMDOT to make these changes allowed. And so it would be a similar process probably for the Forest Service. We're either going to need to meet their requirements and then get their approval to place these, or lobby them to allow us to do this and give them a good enough justification, which I do think that the ECT has the power to do. It's just whether or not the time and the budget exists. All of that is outside of the scope of this contract. Essentially, this is creating the ideal version of what this could look like, making something that would be usable for people.
And there is some flexibility for what the Forest Service and the BLM will allow for, trail head signage on their trails. It has to, meet in with certain standards. And I would say, even if we run into every obstacle in the world, the one thing that does have flexibility is, that kiosk map when you're standing at a trailhead that has the information in a predictable location, standard set of information, including trail accessibility information, trail difficulties, things like that, that the Forest Service has a lot of leeway on. And so, if nothing else, that can be a good unifying that entry point into those trails at each spot and that can be very universal.
So, Lauren and Max, who determines, ECHA determines on trails that are part of the system? So you talk about building trust. So suppose some village has a trail that happens to go past the landfill, but it's their favorite trail, and we put that on there, and they put a sign out there, but no one else loves a trail. Does that build trust? So how does this get into the network? With volunteer signage?
That's definitely a good question. It maybe trust in information or over trust in quality of trails could be a distinction there. But on Forest Service land, obviously it's pretty straightforward, and that's part of what we're talking about is like getting trails into the Forest Service system. Seems like Angel Fire has, I would say, in Red River, Cuesta, like all the places that are developing trails have pretty good standards. And I would say I don't necessarily foresee that being being blindsided by like, oh wow, here's a really shitty trail experience that we suddenly have a sign on. But I would say it'd be up to each individual trail group, such as the trail committee here, to determine which ones that aren't on federal property are appropriate for including on this.
So for years, I reviewed national recreation trail applications to get designated national recreation trails. And the criteria was so vague that almost anyone could approve anything as a national recreation trail. And most of them never had any maintenance plans or management plans or liability things built into them. And I turned down a lot from my professional judgment because they didn't qualify. So I think there might be a role for the ECHA to think through of what criteria is determined to put, if there's a trust system, and this is the Channon Circle Trail, that the visitor experience is great, and the trail experience, sustainability, whatever it is, or it's a non-motorized trail, you pass 70 UTVs that day, you're not building any trust on that trail. So I think you got to think through that criteria of how these get in the system and make sure that,
Yeah,
the
That's
trust.
yeah, that's a great point. And something we hadn't really thought about, and but definitely worth continuing discussion. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Mhm.
So, like I said, this is just a kind of brief first blush. Wanted Max to kind of show you guys some of where we're thinking at. I think this is going to be a continuing conversation about signage. Just wanted to get the idea in Angel Fire's brain about, oh, if we're thinking about new signs, what would you need as a community to be included on these signs? How would these things, could you foresee Angel Fire voluntarily adopting to utilize something along this sign plan? This again, of course, a bigger conversation. Just wanted to introduce the topic and get the brains, get the old gears turning a little bit. So
Yeah, fantastic. I say that, yes, we are willing to entertain more conversations with the village, our committee, and also with Resort as well to think that and talk that through over the next couple of months.
Yeah,
As a
and the
town
question that I would pose for you and anybody else that you talk to for this, knowing again that this is a voluntary inclusion, is we have some ideas of how to make it as easy as possible for you to use. The key is what's gonna make you want to use it, so that more people actually buy into using this as a boilerplate for making signs. If I were in the role of a village manager and somebody said, we need to have 100 signs designed, am I going to know where to start? If we have this boilerplate, this is going to be something where you can say, well, we actually have this policy. If you want to buy into this, here's all of the layout. Here's where things can be sourced. Here are the colors, the templates, and everything that's required to try to make that side of it much easier for people.
Has the Tallahassee Valley adopted this trail package or sign package?
No, nobody has adopted this at this point. We're still very much in the just like working through issues phases to try to make it as usable as possible for everybody. I would say that we have very positive feedback from them from the village of the Tallahassee Valley in terms of this design as well as utilizing the
You have
template.
an idea? Have any idea of cost?
No, and that's going to be one of the elements that comes to play as we go farther into the research aspect of this. The primary goal, honestly, the feedback that we got from everybody that we've talked to so far is that it needs to be dirt cheap because so many of our signs get shot. So, so we are working on sourcing affordable signs. Honestly, the thing that's going to add expense to it is doing that unique shape, the die cut, but everything is you can get anything and everything all the time these days. So we'll find somebody who can source it in an affordable manner.
And are you also working on some kind of mid-trail markers, directional signs? It seems like we struggle with that around here. I mean, most all the Carsonite signs around here are all, broken off at the base and don't seem to last very long. Is that your
The ultimate
kind of
vision would
design?
be, the ultimate vision is that we will take care of visitors from when they're driving down the highway looking for a trailhead to when they arrive at a trail to when they are on a trail at a trail intersection.
Good.
And I think at this point, the direction we would go with those is some form of 4x4 post seems to be the most common indestructible version of something like that.
Such thing.
Steel.
I mean, pretty stout, there's no doubt about it. I mean, you feel steel with concrete.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Max. Appreciate the time. Just want to keep the conversation moving, so we have a couple other things to go through. But yeah, we'll get some deeper conversation on the books with the Trails Committee here in the near future.
Cool. I'm just going to hang out. I'll listen to the rest of your spiel and then I'll get out of here.
Perfect.
Thank you, Max.
Thanks, Max.
So the second thing that we've talked a little bit about is trail accessibility information or trail access information, and we're calling that TAI for how we're going to get information to folks And so I'm looking at, I've just written up and I'll share this out with folks, but basically looking at the kinds of things that people are a lot smarter than all of us have come up with when they're looking at what sorts of information you need to provide visitors for each of the trails. And we've talked about this a little bit, so I'm not going to get into too much detail, but for each trail, total trail length, typical maximum running grade. So just like, is it a steep trail? Is it not a very steep trail? The typical and maximum cross slope. And we found that out when we were out here with the Global Opportunities Unlimited, that some trails just get so steep that, you end up for adaptive cycles, it makes it challenging for them to cross. And then typical and the minimum tread width, which is important to know if the machine that you are on is going to be able to make it through the trail for the entire way. And then surface type, condition, including firmness and stability. And so in an ideal world, that'd be actually testing how deep a wheel sinks into a trail along the way to know whether it's a firm trail or a soft trail. And then, of course, putting on the trailhead the assessment date, because that's good information to let people know that, hey, this stuff might be a little bit it was assessed 5 years ago, so things might have changed since then. So just to give you a couple of examples of what that ends up like. I can share this screen, I think. Oh, nope, that's not it. Sorry. Yeah, it's not popping on my screen. That's right. So I'll send those to you guys as far as oh, there it is. All right, can you see this coming on?
Yeah.
You see the Tahoe rim trail screen. So this has a lot of information, and it would be kind of the maximum amount of detail that you would want for a trail to, and it's almost for me a little bit of information overload. So there's some easier, simpler versions of that I would actually recommend that have a little less detail, and the importance of getting people what the critical information they need is. I think I have, oh, sorry, I don't have that example at my fingertips. But think about the ingredients list in the back of a cereal box. I know we've talked about that. And the advantage of that is it's not telling people, hey, this trail is accessible, but it's saying, here is the information you need to know about the trail to make that decision for yourself. Now, the question we need to figure out is how we want to get there, how we want to get that information in order to put it on those signs. So looking at the level of effort required, there's a couple of different ways that this can be done. And one is it manual assessment, where we're going out there with levels and protractors and what's the word I'm looking for? Clinometers, and actually measuring the trail conditions, ideally, every 25 feet, and getting a whole lot of detailed information. You're writing that down manually, you're adding that in. That would be the manual trail assessment, MUTAP, the manual universal trail assessment process. Gets all of that information. There are also machines that people have put together that create an automated assessment, and it's the high efficiency trail assessment process. Beneficial Designs has come up with that. It's basically a 3-wheel cart. You run along, and then every couple of feet, you're taking, you're hitting buttons, and it's got gyroscopes and everything, and it's figuring out the whole trail assessment. The machine alone is about $13,000 if we want to purchase one of those and start doing assessments. I feel like somewhere in between, there's probably a good hybrid approach. And one of the things I wanted to bring up with you guys is that the Global Opportunities Unlimited, who was out here kind of doing just some initial, all right, let's get our feet wet, our wheels on the ground, and kind of see how what things are looking like out here, did kind of just a general first blush assessment, but they are positioning themselves and would be super excited to work with Angel Fire to come out and do kind of a full detailed audit of all the trails. And to the point that I was talking to them just last week, and Dustin was thinking they could put in for a Trails Plus grant, or if Angel Fire wanted to put in for a Trails Plus grant, or if Angel Fire had matching funds, would be a potential. That'd be something we need to figure out. But basically, putting in for a grant to contract with Global Opportunities Unlimited to come out and do this kind of survey. Now, they don't have currently this high efficiency trail assessment machine. So, we would need to clarify with them kind of the process that they want to use and make sure that we're getting the amount of information that Angel Fire wants for the trails. Because I guess ultimately the question is, do we want to do this where it's like, hey, we got some pretty good information and this will give folks a good understanding? Or do we want to do this, kind of to the highest standard possible, which is, getting the complete average grade and average outslope and things like that, which requires a lot of that data. And so here we're talking about, calculating typical conditions. It's like multiplying each section by the length of that section, some of those values dividing by the total trail length. There's lots of good formulas that we can get, precise, accurate information for every single trail. And my question is whether that juice is worth the squeeze. So I guess at this point, my question would be if we are excited about potentially working with GOU for doing some kind of assessment, or would be interested in maybe looking broader and seeing if we wanted to, get an even more detailed assessment from another firm, and just kind of the level of effort that Angel Fire was wanting to put into assessing their trails.
I think Global Geo Unlimited would be a good source if they have the training and the experience to do the adaptive assessments. If they're familiar with the standards and guidelines that our friends in the Canadian North have done through Kootenai standards and the other trail holistics have done. The question is, we don't know. We have to talk to the resort because most of the trails that would be assessed and used for cross-country riding are the Greenbelt trails managed by the resort. Now, I've had a brief conversation with their new marketing director, Wolf Ashcraft, and he's interested in this as well. So I think we need to, I think an action result of this is to have a conversation with Patrick and Wolf together to see where they have an interest in this to push it, because I think we all see the opportunity to, we have got all these veterans healing programs around here. And if we can market the green belts as opportunities for people with adaptive cycles, adaptive opportunities, we would attract more people who are here for the healing part of it through physical activity. So it's worth having that conversation now with Patrick and with Wolf, I believe.
I think all the activities that they sponsor would be ideal for Angel Fire because they have fishing, horseback, hiking, biking. They actually have 2 of our trails on their website for access for ADA, and that's the downhill trails. So I think they'd be a good source. I just don't know if they're able to do an assessment properly.
To go unlimited
Yes.
people, yeah.
Is it, I'm speaking out of ignorance here, but isn't user experience a useful kind of a tool? I mean, that's kind of what they do, right? They get on these trails and they can say, this didn't work here, or that does work there.
User experience is fine to a level, but to me, something I think is green, you could think is black. So that's not a fair assessment. So that's the problem we've always had with trails and mountain bike trails, green, blue, or skiing is like, what happens in Angel Fire is totally different in Tahoe, it's totally different in Massive Nothing in Virginia or somewhere in Vail. So that's why it's important to describe the grade, the cross slope. You can go 3/4 of a mile before you hit this 3-inch boulder that you have got to navigate over. So we get the information from the user, they determine whether or not they are physically or mentally fit to take on that challenge, the trail. I
I could
don't think
jump
we
in
want to go.
there.
Yeah, I don't think we want to
is.
eat that long. That's crazy. Oh,
So
Lord.
on the user experience side of things, there is a whole other trail assessment standard that you use that this data could help go into that. But there's actually an outfit out of Switzerland who is working on trying to bring together all these different blue, green, black, red, double black diamond, all this stuff, putting that into a very objective standard based on things like trail slope, trail angle, technical difficulty, number of obstacles, and then grading it on, challenge, also exposure and risk based on very real things like, are you on the edge of a cliff? What is the likelihood of injuring yourself if you fall off this trail? And then they have a third system that is endurance. And so anybody who, can walk from their couch to their refrigerator can be fine on this trail, or this trail requires, or this route, I guess, would require somebody who's, does certain amount of, has a certain amount of cardio ability, et cetera. And so it's kind of a nice little system that like I said, it feels like it has a potential to be a good unifying standard, and it's coming into North America. So that's something further down the line, but something we could also think about as far as those levels of experience assessment. But as far as accessibility assessment, like Attila was saying, providing those cold hard facts of like, here's what you're going to run into, and then people are able to make those decisions for themselves.
And it's also very clear, it's an adaptive trail assessment, I think, is less difficult to accomplish than a full compliance universal accessible trail. And I think a lot of what the ETAP looks at and the UTAP looks at is universal accessible. That means anyone from 8 to 80 using a mobility device or not can use it. And adaptive, I think, is recognizing that there are going to be challenges on the trail segments, and there's going to be off-camera moments. But if they're described, we don't have to take out all off-camera moments or those pitches. Who's got to describe them? They know where they are, and they can determine. So if there's difference. And I don't want us to get into thinking about, we want all the greenbelt trails to be 100% ADA compliant. That's not our goal. And nor does ADA apply to trails. The Forest Service came up with their Universal Trail Guideline standards, but ADA is based on the built environment, as is ABA. And so everyone gets hung up on that. And that works for municipal buildings and federal buildings and state buildings, but does not have to apply to outdoor environment.
And in fact, a lot of trail users who are on adaptive bicycles are like, no, we want fun trails with step ups and off camber, and like we don't want trails, simplified or barriers removed. We just want to know what we're getting into, so we make sure we don't get 3 miles out and we get to a pinch point where we can't turn around.
Or whatever, or can't get help. Right.
2 years ago, they demolished the trails that we had here. I know Lauren and Bugsy were on that trip. But we have to reassess too, because they've changed a lot of those trails now. Patrick has reworked and bypassed a lot of those. So he improved them to make them a little bit better for bikes, but he's got a lot of switchbacks that would be hard for them to navigate. So we have to maybe reassess certain trails again.
Well, and I would say what GOU did a couple of years ago, and I don't know if they shared the report with you. If they didn't, I can share that. Was kind of more of a gestalt overall. All right, let's see what's going on out there. But what would be proposed for this would be a more methodical, protocols based. Okay, we're going to do X number of measurements, and this is the concrete information that we're going to provide. The level of detail significantly more than what was what they got a couple of years ago.
So I could be worth them putting together a quote, so we know when we have to pursue through a Trails Plus grant and see if the resort's willing to participate in that. But I also think it's worth talking to the other, I think I shared with you, Quinn Brett and their team in I don't know if they're Montana now, where they're at, but that's another firm that does a lot of adaptive assessments. It'd be worth getting a couple different quotes for us.
Yeah. Yep, I'd be happy to. If that's, yeah, if we're thinking we want to go kind of the more detailed route, I can get both of those things. I'll get GOU to put together their kind of proposal, and then yeah, we can also send out an RFP to other interested parties as well.
How do you guys feel about that?
Absolutely.
Support for the
Absolutely.
consensus on pursuing adaptive assessments?
Yeah, I think it's mainly just seeing where the resort, that's right.
Yeah, that's-
And then,
Yeah.
then from there, absolutely.
We got a lake for fishing, they have archery, they have all kinds of stuff. They do hunting. It's a nice area for them to actually start from.
So Lauren, I will take on an action to follow up with Patrick West, bike park manager / trail manager, and also Wolf Ashcraft, their marketing director, who's familiar with adaptive trails. He actually told me Saturday at the members event that they are exploring becoming a ride center here. Imba Ride
Oh, nice.
Center. I don't think that's possible for a long ways, but he's familiar with the Imba Ride Centers and other destination kind of designations.
Awesome.
I'll talk to them
Yeah,
and
I will.
we'll conversation on that.
Perfect. And meanwhile, I'll have GOU write up kind of a more or a detailed proposal, and then I can also I'll solicit interest from a couple of other outside firms, and we'll kind of see parity on, what potential costs are and the level of detail, and then that'll allow you guys to make an assessment on how big we want to go.
Agreed?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we got consensus on that. Thank you. All right, last topic for you. I know you're way past your time to get off the line, but
That's all right. I got a little wiggle room.
okay.
So I've had a couple conversations with the Forest Service and about, bringing trails into the system. And, the obvious ones are the Lady Slipper, or I'm sorry, not the Lady Slipper, the Ho Chi Minh Trail and the Whoop-de-Doo trails. And let me see if I can share one more screen. It's not lining up with my. All right, so there's back to that. All right, can you see that? Am I sharing?
Not yet.
Technology. Sorry, I'm used to Zoom and not Microsoft Teams. So this is, let's see if I can do it this way. Greenbelt Trails, Angel Fire. So
There you go.
so this is the trail forks, trails of what we've got in the area. And the missing chunk, right, is the section here between the LA Barker Trail and the Greenbelt Trails. And the green is the National Forest land. And so the trails that are shown on here are the ones that are actual Forest Service designated trails, except for this one. L Trail is not a Forest Service designated trail, nor is this mid trail that's put on there. And that's one of the things to remember is like trail forks, anybody can put any trail on the map. And it's kind of a little game of whack-a-mole to try to keep them highlighting the actually designated trails. So the question I'm going to have for the committee, and this is again going to be a bigger conversation, but I've started to map the trails that we are thinking that we want to talk to the Forest Service about including or bringing on for inclusion. These two connector trails, I will say one the Forest Service asked me to include is actually over here by the parking area, where the Elliott Barker Trail got obliterated by the highway improvements. So putting in a new trail contouring there to connect that loop with Elliott Barker, or the Elliott Barker trailhead to this side loop is something the Forest Service is interested in including on that. There has been some talk. Is Angel Fire interested in pursuing a trail, connecting between, say, the RV resort loop? I know there's the horse trail that is already in existence there that is being utilized. So formalizing that trail kind of makes some sense to me. Some of these other trails in this area, makes a lot of sense, or maybe not. And so I think what we need to do is have a longer discussion. Did that switch? Can you now see the satellite map?
No,
No,
See that grease?
so while you're talking about that, Patrick, and maybe Will both told me that they now seem to have some control over what goes on Trail Forks for the resort area.
Perfect.
So
Yeah, I've seen
they-
some
you
updates
will-
on Trail Forks that, so that's, yeah, it's been
Yeah.
great. So this is a Strava heat map of the trails people are using, which could be a good indicator of the trails that we want to try to include in this process. Again, the L Trail is something somebody had put on Trail Forks, but it doesn't look like it's been getting that much use, for one reason or another. So I think, if we throw a spaghetti map at the Forest Service and say, hey, we want every single trail on here, that's probably not going to fly. So I think we should be very specific about which trails, how to prioritize those trails. And while we're thinking about trails connecting to Elliott Barker, there's a lot of use up here. I think this is above the power lines connecting into Elliott Barker. That is technically not a trail access as far as I know. And that's, not a legal access. I don't think it'd be a very big lift to be able to, incorporate that into, into the official Forest Service designation for a trail. The other one being this access over here by the water tanks. That again is not a designated Forest Service trail or connector, even though people ride it, drive it, it gets usage. And the problem is if it's not a designated use, then the Forest Service has a harder time doing any kind of management interventions. So if it's not a designated trail, we can't go out there and maintain it. They can't really put up signage saying, hey, this is not a motorized trail, things like that. Like it becomes this weird sort of management gray area. And so having these trails designated, I think could provide some good value add. And then the last one that was kind of on my radar is I know down here at the top of the Lady Slipper Trail, there's the connector over to Forest Road 76. I think it's called the old Osha Pass Road. That is another connector that I know people utilize, but again, is not an official Forest Service trail. So what I guess is just opening up the conversation that I'd love to schedule some time to have 2 meetings with you guys or a subcommittee of folks is one, which trails do we want to look at for inclusion? That'd be the first meeting and we can go through this map and get that level of detail. And then the second is let's take that map out into the field and actually walk around. Could be tied in one to the other. But as talked about that, I'd love to do that here end of June or the first part of July. And the timeline for the rest of this is we get those trails dialed in that we want to see included. ECTA is creating a packet for the Forest Service that has the detailed information about the trails. We're talking to the resource specialists to see what areas have already been cleared for archaeology. A lot of this area has been cleared for wildfire survey or wildfire thinning and things like that. So some of it could be an easy lift. Some may not have been cleared for wild or archaeology or cultural surveys. So there may need to be some additional work in that. But best case scenario, if the forest has good data on these regions and is able to make the decisions with their specialists, then this fall at what they basically call their CE week, they do a categorical exclusion week, they would look at this proposed submissions and then either approve the trails or, you know, put them through a shorter period of public review and comment, but then ultimately approve these trails for inclusion in the system. And then that opens up our ability to place signs, start doing trail maintenance, and formalize those connections. So we have questions on that.
Well, one of the things I just want to keep in, is like the trail Nancy uses to ride her horses, that's always been allowed for snowmobiles in the winter, which we ride across, I want people to be sensitive to that. And then there are some areas where side by sides do go that, they need a balance there.
And that would be, yeah, part of the trail management that would definitely, ultimately be the Forest Service's decision, but that's something that the community and Angel Fire could say, hey, here's our recommendation for how this trail should be designated. Some trail, currently no trail on the Carson National Forest is designated for e-bike usage. But I would say, the connector from Lady Slipper over to Forest Road 76, being an old roadbed, seems like that could be easily approved as an e-bike connector over. It's going from a motorized road to a motorized road. So, something like that. But those are recommendations that we can make to the forest as far as the usage that you guys would like to see.
So I believe one of the issues on Whoopie-Doo and Ho Chi Minh, which seem to be our priorities, is the resort is taking them off of the Greenbelt map because there's no legal access to those trails to even to begin with. So there are some concerns that even our committee about trying to get access. Will the landowner who owns the piece of land everyone trespasses across to get to those two trails, would they be okay pursuing a recreation use statute agreement, let people cross? Who would maintain this piece of trail on private land to get to the forest? And would the Forest Service even entertain designating two trails with no legal access to them? And what are the pieces of that puzzle that we'd have to work on in order to be ready for a CADX meeting that says, yes, we're a go?
So with some of those, when I was out there walking around myself, and this is where I think it's important to get out in the field and boots on the ground, it looked like there was possible ways to route the trail directly from public access roadways to, to the Forest Service, with maybe, 50 feet of connection. So that would require, a conversation with the landowner, but it seems like that would be a fairly straightforward ask. So
It's
that,
Topple, wasn't it?
what's
So it's
that?
Topple Ridge, wasn't it?
Yeah, so that's,
Yeah, my view would be that when we bring it to the attention of the landowner who's never made a big deal, but now they start thinking about it and they decide maybe I shouldn't be letting anybody go across there. Then all of a sudden we've got our access point that we've always been able to use. Now we're actually locked out.
That's when we go through your backyard.
Yeah.
We used to do that all the time in the Aspens, so there's no houses up there.
Yeah.
Lauren, the other point of access was you showed the power lines, Apache Pass, they call it.
yes.
I would imagine that's an easement for the electric company, isn't it? Would that be
Right,
okay
so-
for us to actually?
Yep, it's not atypical to overlay a recreation easement over an existing utility easement, and that can be a little easier lift because if the landowner already has given that, that utility easement, that can be, that could definitely be a nice tight package.
But just because a landowner gave a utility easement doesn't mean they would necessarily give a recreational easement.
That's
Correct.
And I'm a little concerned with the way Kit Carson's been treating their easements about, clearing everything out. I mean, if Kit Carson's got that easement and we say we want a recreational easement and they start thinking, well, that just means more potential fire hazard risk, the more people that are coming up and down this power line easement, I could see them maybe saying, we didn't realize so many people were coming up and down there.
Yeah,
Maybe we ought to,
watch
Put a
what
stop
you
to
wish
it.
for.
they cleared their underneath the easements, they've cleared all the that brush out and trees and stuff to reduce fire risk. And like that power line easement now, I mean, there's vehicle traffic going up there all day long up there. And I would think if Kit Carson realized that, they would
Put some boulders there.
get upset, I think.
Well, and that's also a potential discussion for the landowner is, hey, if we designate this as a trail and manage it, then, could block off the vehicle access, reduce that access, things like that. The last thing I was going to say, and then I do unfortunately have to jump off, is, for easement concerns, it seems like over by the water tanks, connector up to Elliott Barker would be the easiest lift as far as that goes, because I believe that road goes right into National Forest land. So, starting with that, prioritizing which ones we want to go through, starting some conversations with the landowners in conjunction with the resort, which I think owns some of that land as well, would be good next steps. But I guess my ask is if we could, I'll reach out, but if we could identify if there's a subset of folks in this room who would be interested in helping me develop this map, and then go out and look at some stuff in the field, and then we develop a plan of action to make sure we have all those ducks in the row for, I guess, presenting these trails to the Forest Service.
If I may, I'd like to recommend, John, you and Chris take, we know that trackers know their system pretty well, and John as well, and you can also talk with Patrick. So John and Chris Sorensen, president of the Marion Valley Trackers, will be your key points of contact on working through this access issue and leading towards the CADAX meeting.
Perfect.
On that power line easement up there, to the left, when you go up there, that's a road that people drive all the time.
That's not
From Bias
I
Candido.
know they drive all the time, but it's not motorized designated.
Well, the one on the left is,
No, it's
they
not.
come all the way from Bias
They
Candido.
do.
With the
If
system,
you look at the motorized vehicle map, it's not.
it's not.
It's not.
Right. But they go right
Now they're-
through another gang and go up on our Elliott Barker Trail.
Well, that's not motorized. Know
Not
that.
supposed to be. The game camera up there, you see all kinds of cars up there.
Yeah, I see cars parked all.
So that's another topic that's worthy of conversation beyond this.
Yes, the motorized.
Yeah.
But it'll kind of go hand in hand, because when addressing these legal access points would then be, what kind of legal access?
Well, I know on the Bias Candido side, it's crucial. I mean, local, longtime residents use that to harvest wood.
Oh, I've had a few of them.
There's
Okay, Lauren, thank you.
Folks, I'm sorry. Yep. I got to run, but I will follow up with John and Chris on that topic.
Thanks for the updates.
All right. Cheers. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on. We have, we're gonna stick to our hour and a half meeting. We have 30 minutes to get to a couple of items here and move a little faster on. There's the Allen Fields Master Plan report on the approval. Shay, can you touch on that and maybe any questions or comments that council or village management had about the plan? And what our next steps are? And you're muted.
Yeah, you're muted.
I'm trying to figure out how to unmute. Yeah, Zoom.
Sign language.
Okay, I couldn't get it to go off. Presented it to the council and they really didn't have that many questions at all. They approved it anonymously and I'm trying to think if there were any questions that came up. They all seemed pretty excited about it. They were impressed with how big the plan was and how many things that we had in there. But other than that, there wasn't a whole heck of a lot more feedback on that.
I thought there was concern on the road going into Allen Field as far as straightening it out or do something different with the road. That was
The mayor did bring that up and he just questioned why it was going, why we changed it. That he just questioned that.
just because of cost. But, I mean, Kurt brought up the good point that at a 90-degree, it's gonna be more appropriate for traffic with the new design.
Key design versus that
Yeah.
angle.
Uh,
Okay, so now that is approved, what's the next steps? I guess the skate park is gonna be the thing that most people want. Going to move forward on the slab that we have approval on the plan. We know, you're ready to submit a purchase order to line of sight surveying. So they can go in and do a property survey for us to make sure we know where the boundaries are. And the question Shay had is what, and that wait till July 1 of the new fiscal year? Cause I don't know if Carl can get it started before then, and then it's a question of allocating funds that's not getting delivered within the same fiscal year for the village. So are we okay with allocating that PO July 1? Okay,
Yeah,
July 1 is okay for a line of sight. Shay?
Yeah, it would be,
Do that.
yeah, it would be much better because we're pretty much closing out. This is our last check run next week. So, yeah,
I guess you can let Carl know he should be working July 3rd and 4th and the 5th on.
yeah.
Gotta get it done. All right, so survey's done, and then the next piece is probably be the skateboard slab and working through that process. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think once Carl gets the survey in, we kind of get an idea where that trail's gonna be right there, then we can really say, drop a pin drop, don't you think?
Yeah, here's your slab and the rest of it.
But the trail probably needs to be kind of configured just to be on the safe side.
so we don't.
Yeah. I think we identify that slab location and we work around the slab location. I think that slab is kind of the most important factor for this thing, the trail could sort.
Well, the idea was just that if we're gonna be able to push it out farther for more parking for the
Right.
softball fields, then we would wanna push that slab out closer to, as far as we can.
Okay, and then we drop off this hill a little further for the
Yeah,
trail.
and has the council approved the slab?
The contract, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, that was at an earlier meeting where they approved, Oliver's contribution.
But it doesn't include the slab.
Doesn't matter. The contribution of Oliver was to build the features
Right.
that was the match,
I was at that meeting. I think they approved
the slab.
Less slab and purchase, so
Yeah,
is that
but
slab?
his contract's not
Right.
with the slab.
Right, but so the slab has been budgeted or the cost has been approved?
We estimated it, yeah.
Okay.
We got pretty close.
So, I mean, if-
250,000.
For instance, if Carl got done with the survey at the second week of July, we can proceed with the slab. As soon as the survey's done, the slab.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I would like to get with Oliver as far as the design for the pump track, because he kind of has some vague stuff about that in his proposal. And he's mentioned time and time again about having the resources to provide, the whole design of all of it. See where we're at with that. Because I've got American Ramp Company blowing up my email, chomping at the
They've
bit.
been.
Oliver's been waiting a year and a half.
Are they?
Emailed him.
Yeah.
I've got a copy of that.
Well, I think the idea in my mind too is just, once we get the survey and the trail, which the trail's gonna go along, obviously, probably along the boundary of the property in that area, just so that we'll know where all that facility's gonna go, so
That shouldn't take that long.
no, it shouldn't.
No, the slab should be able to happen relatively quickly.
Yeah. I just don't want to put it right smack dab where extended parking area could go,
Yeah.
those type of
Is
things.
there anybody who wants to donate the slab? Not yet.
Well, I think the village is already approved, yeah, it's
Oh,
already paid
maybe one of some
for.
companies.
That's, we're not running up against getting funding.
We anticipate saving some costs with one of the concrete guys.
Yeah. They're chomping at the bit, and then so they also send a bunch of other good information about their contracts for UCI contracts. Meaning that's
You can have the.
Yeah, see.
yeah, you could have bids, and
That's what I-
their one event brought in $500,000, $600,000.
That's what I like. That's what we want to do.
Right.
Lodgers tax.
United
Right.
Collegiate something cycling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Okay, so,
Ken to weigh in on anything on that or?
yeah, Ken's gonna jump in now, I think, a little more on the
Perimeter.
perimeter trail and then, and your final report or your final plan with narrative, Ken?
That's right. We'll start preparing a report that summarizes the planning process, including all the existing conditions and the plans in hand that the village has, including the improvements to roads and parking. Sort of summarize that. And also what is dedicated in terms of lighting and the type of improvements that you have planned. And then we'll go into the planning process, including our charrette, our survey of the community, the development of design options, your review, and eventually, as we know, the council adoption of the plan. It'll take me about 2 weeks to put that together, maybe 3. I assume that will not affect your pursuit of funding with the outdoor recreation economic development group. Is that so? That timeframe?
I saw the announcement for the next round of Rec Trails Plus, but I don't know what the closing date was for that. I think we've got some time though.
Oh, yeah, no, the closing date's like the end of the year.
Okay.
We're gonna be hitting it like first.
Okay, so I think that timeline works, Ken.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's our current plan. And
Okay, did I
I'll pull it all
share
together.
Did I share the draft scouting report with you today or not? I maybe not include you. So I
Yes,
did
you
put
did.
together, okay, that's a GPS. I can send you the GPS or the KML for that. The loop we walked. It may or may not be in the boundary. But I'll send you the data for that.
Fantastic.
A
Thank you.
rough piece.
Yeah, we'll incorporate that into the plan.
Okay,
And I mean, that's the next step from my standpoint. Is there anything more I can provide that might be of service to the committee and to the village?
any questions, thoughts? Okay.
Okay.
I think, on the scouting report, I'll revise that, but, Tim did bring up that we want to make sure there is a trail leading to and from the concession stand / bathroom facility, because that's tied to, I think, some grant criteria, so gotta revise that a bit. To show that, we did talk about that, but I didn't map that final piece of the walkabout.
Right.
Just say 2 concessions.
Yeah,
Also included in my plan will be actually that pre-manufactured concession restroom structure that is being considered, that structure. Okay.
okay. And the slab size will be in there to scale as well, correct? I think we already talked about, that was the scale in the drawing, okay.
Yes, it's in there. I'll try to locate it as best as possible. And yeah, I think as you begin to work with the American Ramp, that could move one way or the other, depending on the trail survey that you're going to get from Carl.
Yeah, I definitely think, I mean, before we start getting into fun, we need to have that survey. for sure.
Right. And then once the document is delivered, Shay, will that go up on the village website? Will you do socials posts that the master plan is up and available? Because people have asked on a couple, I think Joshua did a post about it and people were asking some questions about detail. So can you assure us that this plan will be up on the rec page and you know how to link to it and find out more about it and how to get involved?
Yeah, I can post the approved plan up on the village website. It's also, Ileana probably already did post it in the minutes, but I could also post it, you know, just so people can find it better. Maybe on the Allen Fields page and Allen Fields Facebook
The
page
minutes
too.
are not a source of public information. No one reads minutes. I think the more we do social posts with a picture of, I mean, just the fact that he put a pump track video in that post
Yeah.
garnered a lot of attention
Yeah.
versus just narrative text. So we can make it a little more snappy and interesting, and if you need help with a pump track video or something, I think we can get stuff to you to help improve visibility and outreach on that post.
Yeah, no, anything you guys want to send to me, you know, like I said, I have the master plan that was approved, and I'll go ahead and post that, and then anything else that you guys want to post on the website or the social media page, I can do that too.
I think
Definitely Ken's final report.
Ken's final report, I think the summary infographics on the survey would be good to post on your page. Any relevant information we've come up with recently that speaks to all the work we put into Allen Fields. Ken's got a question or hand up.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm thinking to myself, there's one item I might have missed, was the phasing of funding and construction, sort of a diagram that illustrates what's prioritized by the village. That's pretty simple right now because we're fairly sure, right? The skate park and pump track probably is the primary priority. However, lighting's right there. That could be happening at the same time. And so, and how all those things begin to come together in a phased plan. That might be a graphic that would need review by the committee prior to finalizing. And I could take a stab at it in the draft if that's okay with you. But there's probably plenty of conversation that needs to occur before that graphic is finalized.
Yeah, so my quick take on that would be, and I think I made this suggestion earlier, is that the phase one is shadowed and in some color, you know, it's a red or whatever. So that might be the pump track and the skate park and session lighting in the bathroom is phase one.
And
The perimeter trail. Phase two might include the improved parking, and it might include the
sign.
sign, changing the road, and also possibly the horseshoe pits and volleyball, which are kind of low things. And then phase three would likely be rec center, track and field, triumphant arch, whatever else.
Phase two is fields too.
Allen Arch. Phase two, softball fields could be phase two. I'm not sure where they fit in, but it should be phase two. They need to get done.
Yeah.
So I thought, you know, one map and showing three colors. Phase one is everything in this color, phase two is everything in this color, and phase three is everything in this color. Might be the simple way to do it. If that works from your graphic perspective, I may not know that for sure.
That,
But
Yeah,
yes, let's
certainly.
put out a draft and we'll comment on it.
okay. All right, I'll go for that. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, quickly on this item on anything else on the perimeter trail. So I did share a draft out today, what we found on our scouting trip. Got a lot of unanswered questions because we don't know the boundary issues, but it appears that it's gonna have to skirt right behind the softball fields. And then it's kind of heads north towards, stays on the boundary, heading up towards that road you can see from the airport. And then we cut across the top of the Greenland, the wetland swale and the side slope, heading over to the road intersection. And then one of the choke points is where Cienega Creek goes under Camino Real. There's 3 culverts. It would be a engineering problem, maybe more money we need to spend, but we could drop the trail down and cross. At photo point 7, which isn't on the map yet, but photo point 7 was the sewer access cover. And then from there we cross over continue around, intersecting pathway or running path that Merino Valley School has been using. And that connects to the route we flagged last year or 2 years ago for the Allen Field piece, then back to the starting point. But a 1.7 mile loop. And then we also considered along the west side of Cienega Creek would be another part of the Frank Young Trail that would extend to Camino Real. And that will give you 2 loops within Allen Field's stack loop system, making it more usable. I put in the report some opportunities, including a bike skills feature. If we can't do a skills park in the space we have, you can do a skills feature along the trails. So parents could ride or walk or ride with caregivers, and their kids could go over a boulder field or a balance beam or some other features along the trail. I included the opportunities for fitness stations that focus on stretching and balance issues for us older population people more than the fitness stuff. And then also the parkour features, which could come from the high school down Allen Field. So it's kind of an adventure loop, different opportunities along the trail. Otherwise, construction with the addition of 2 bridges is not that complex. Pretty well doable. And I'll revise that report and then we'll have that for Carl and for this team to work with.
Just for clarification, going back to the culverts, I mean, that's where we cross because that's where we could cross.
Cross, right.
But the trail wasn't gonna go there.
The trail is gonna drop down to that.
Right.
Photo 0.7.
Right, so.
Because he discussed it in.
I did, maybe as an alternative, because it'd be too complex. You could cross up there, but that's a lot of extra work that we don't need to do. And it would drop down behind the the rec center would also serve as a trailhead then. So,
Well, and we talked about that even before this trail were to get formally constructed, it could probably be actually staked out and mowed.
and just, yeah,
Used so that you may need it until it gets really constructed, go up there and cross on the road
right.
and then.
I'm on it.
So we can put in
Give me a wider deck if you need to.
we could put in just a natural surface, just loop system until we get it done.
Yeah, yeah. And at that point, you'd probably have to cross over by the culverts. So,
We'll do a monkey bridge. Oops.
yeah. When we were out there, we kind of got it thinking about maybe we should look at the warranty deed to make sure there was no restrictions, that Jeff got that warranty deed. And there were restrictions, but it looks like we're well within that, because they said his use of sports flex.
Yeah,
I would think this is considered.
in line.
So,
Okay. Anything else on the scouting trip? Any other observations from the rest of the scouting crew?
So our thought too was that eventually this, probably members of this committee would go out there and start staking the trail.
Once we
Once we kind of know what the boundaries are.
guessing we're within the boundary.
Well, I mean, I guess in certain parts were well within the boundary, but then on others were, yeah, on the line or over the line.
I think one thing we have to, consider is if, the bridge system does seem to be complex. We may have to have 2 faces of that trail too, right?
Potentially, yeah. Maybe just stay on the west side of the creek and what comes down.
So we have this existing Trails Plus grant in place. How do we start using that for this design?
I think once we stake it, I think we should again, agree. Once the boundary survey is done, we can stake it out. Rocky can then start having a conversation with Dennis Engineering. That'll probably do the engineering work on it, but I think we still should agree on the engineering techniques we think we want to use. For example, I'm pretty much firm on, we need to have a metal lath or something at the underneath, because So prairie dogs are gonna destroy it within weeks. And I don't think the engineer company's gonna think about that, they'll do all the hard packet, but we've seen what, they can go through asphalt.
It's better to tell the engineers.
Yeah, so we're gonna probably describe what we want as for our surfacing, and then let them do their thing. I would like to see some of that money allocated towards consensus for incorporating the bike park or the, skills park features, the parkour stuff, and also, maybe the bridge design, if it's, low tech, and also the, fitness stations. I think consensus of the plan, that landscape side of the things, engineering, they can do their thing, but we want to keep that at a 5% or less grade, which is doable through the whole thing. But I think we'll have to spec it out.
Trails plus grant, what's the,
I think that money's gotta be spent by March of end of March of 2027. That's very well doable by this. I don't know, it's a $99,000 grant. I'm not sure if it was a 25% match, if we're putting in 25%.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
But there's in-kind match that we had to have for that. So I don't know what that is. Wasn't a straight grant though.
so March of 27. Realistically, a whole lot can't be done in the winter time, right? I mean, engineering can't.
Yeah.
I mean, they gotta be out, I don't think they've got to.
Well, and I mean, once they walk it and survey it and GPS it, the engineering gets pretty quick for them. We can tell them we think this should be a full bed straight cut, this is gonna be up the surface.
And then, as far as build goes, we could earmark money. Maybe you don't have to spend it, as long as it's earmark.
So, the contract with Carl right after July 1st, realistically, what do you think it's gonna take? Weeks, really? Do you think he's gonna go get right on it? Dude,
Yeah.
sounded like it.
I think if Shay can let Carl know that she's gonna cut the PO on July 1, he should be ready to go July 2nd or 5th or whatever. Get it done, so we need it.
Yeah, there's that. I don't know if
I ran over to the post office and said this is a pretty high priority.
I don't know if you noticed on that warranty deed where it carved out the legal description. I think it said based on Carl's survey.
Yeah,
And did you see, how many different points? So I don't know if there's pins
I
on
know,
every one of those points.
and
And we didn't see any, but there would probably be 100 of them.
Yeah.
Legal description.
I know, and hopefully he stakes,
Yeah,
A lot of
one
that.
those, yeah,
because we would need that.
yeah. But it sounded like it must have been like around the ball fields, yeah, a radius, because there was tons of marks.
Yeah, we've got the recorded survey that he did.
Okay.
Anything else on perimeter trail Allen Fields for today? All right, the last item on here is refocus and prioritization. Our list up here, we had e-bike policy. So we've completed a lot of stuff. We identified we might want to help with the kite festival, skate festival, those are coming up. E-bike policy is still out there. Pedestrian vehicle crossing and audits. Adaptive trail is another one. So adaptive trails underway. And then the stuff with the Forest Service is underway. E-bike policy. I'm also, again, asking Wolf Ashcraft if he can prompt the resort manager to survey of their users. So I think, I'm uncomfortable pursuing any policy that doesn't have any input from, users. So, John,
My my thought is the resort is class 1. So if they RV park, they start bringing in class 2. Is resort gonna change their mind or? That's pretty much, no matter what kind of survey we get or what kind of results we get in the survey, it still comes down to class 1. So my thought is basically on the city streets, And also the village trails that have class two opportunities. Because Park Cities and other cities have
Right.
done this, basically saying description of a trail is the identify.
Pathway versus trail.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So that's what my thought is, because there's one company here that basically is renting those out, and they rent out class one and class two. So I don't know where they're taking the class twos at, but, and I know that resorts only looking for, liability issues. Somebody goes on a trail with a class two bike, gets injured, then
You've got a policy.
you got a
covered.
policy that says they shouldn't be on it.
So, so that, on that same note though, then why not class three? Because you could say limited pathways to 10 miles an hour, any bicycle, no matter what you're riding. So why would it matter what we have? So, I mean, there's some unanswered questions that I think I'd like to get a handle on, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think a lot of municipalities are doing their pathway systems as 1 and 2s and then otherwise, but we don't know what
It doesn't
this.
seem like anybody that's class three,
Yeah.
there's too many stipulations as far as age is one. And then speedometer has to be on it, and then helmet
Right.
for certain ages. So.
But I think if you spend $500,000 on an RV, you're gonna spend $100,000, $500 on a Chinese e-bike. You have no idea what you bought, whether it's STEM or 3.
I mean, some people I
I think that's-
talk to
I
don't
think
even know
that's the
what class they
I
have.
know, I think that's the issue.
And the two people that ride every day is Kat and Kevin. And she has a full suspension, no bad. She can go anywhere, class one. Kevin has a class two, but he only wants to stay on the roads.
I think Kevin got about 8,000 miles on that thing.
I think I've seen
Now,
that.
it's like a motorcycle, so he doesn't want to go up into the Greenbelt trails or do the downhill, obviously, he doesn't have the right to that.
Well, and that's one of the things that,
But
you
there's some
know,
common sense to it too, what do you have, what are your abilities to go up into others?
So, let's,
well, in some of the e-bikes, what you're seeing is people who are traveling to work and back are starting to use electric powered
yeah,
vehicles to get back and forth to
Right.
work, so you want to keep that in
So,
mind too.
we don't wanna turn this, the rest of this, like 4 minutes into this e-bike discussion. Do we wanna keep this as a e-bike back into a July topic or August topic and see if we can get some results from the resort first? And if the resort is, again, not willing to cooperate, we just move forward with some things and make a recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, I still think we can do a village e-bike policy independent of the resort, because then there's roads and everything else,
Oh, yeah, all the
sidewalks, so we need to have an e-bike policy for all that
Keep
stuff.
talking, take over for a second, Tim.
Just so, the only problem is people come in from out of town and they don't know which is which.
Right.
But like, say, even like Kevin riding his e-bike on the roads, I mean, seems like we need an e-bike policy for.
Yeah.
I mean, there's very few village hiking trails, but there's a lot of village roads
Yeah, you can go.
and other things that we probably should have an e-bike policy for. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let the,
That's why I want to go to class two with those, because it's pretty much roads.
yeah, well,
Or just the Sandility Soul or Bobcat, that's pretty much all we
yeah,
have.
but I mean, like, yeah, I think you'd allow a class 3 on any road, because a motorcycle would be allowed.
Right.
On any road, but then we could say, well, what about sidewalks, village
Yeah.
sidewalks, either nothing's allowed or whatever.
Now, they're allowed to do Oregon stops too, but we don't have a traffic light here. We got stop signs.
Yeah.
The stop sign, they can yield and just go through those.
But, yeah.
Traffic light, they're supposed to stop. That's the new law for bicycles and e-bikes, because it's all in the same umbrella.
I mean, some of those kids coming from the north side of town, coming in from work on those e-bikes, I don't know if you want them riding on the road.
Right, I think the e-bike policy should address where they're allowed, are they allowed on the road?
They're not buying $5,000 e-bikes.
Or they're right on their shoulder.
Yeah,
I
so,
don't think we.
Just like a bicycle. Bicycle is a motorized, considered a,
Well, that's a whole separate conversation, is are bikes allowed on village sidewalks?
Which,
should be.
I think there's liability there.
And I think there should not be,
Should not be.
but we have, the village has not a job on. You have a bike lane on Vale to El Camino, which is not a bike lane.
I'd rather ride.
Like 100 feet.
I mean, I need to take my 4 and 5-year-old, I mean, I'm not gonna put them in the road.
Right.
Right.
So the roads are the
Get from
answer.
point A to
So,
B.
but I think an e-bike policy is something we ought to get on with and.
Absolutely.
okay,
There's
so
already people out there.
should that be a July topic? E-bike, continue e-bike following July topic, and you would also,
Yeah.
pedestrian vehicle crossings. I mean, some folk thinks the resort never put up signs, it's maybe the village would put up
Yeah.
trail crossing. Well, the resort should put up stop signs or yield to traffic signs, but we don't think we'll get any progress. So both of these be further conversation for pet bike and e-bike policy next meeting in July.
Yep.
And any updates on adaptive, which we'll have, and we'll do regular reporting, keeping those two topics. Next meeting, should we do a month from now or the week after that, later in July?
We're probably gonna have to have a work session once Carl gets done, but
Okay, let's do it later in July then. Let's put it at, 16th, 23rd. Is that right?
July 16th is a Thursday.
So the next one after that. On the third.
yeah, 23rd.
Let us see if, we have it available.
Or is it the afternoon?
I prefer morning, that's less, doesn't ruin my whole day.
We go back to the person.
Well, the truckers, I mean, Thursday's a good hike day.
Yeah. And pickleball will be, back on again.
8:30, Thursday, the 23rd. Census,
3 o'clock,
Y'all ever do
8:30?
afternoon?
3 o'clock.
Afternoon.
But Thursdays are a big truckers hike day.
Okay.
So we do, that shoots that up. Better we were done by that.
better morning, afternoon. Sucks either way.
Friday.
Wow.
Today's our Friday, so like I'm not blowing up right now.
He's the boss.
What do we do?
So is mine.
What do we
All
do?
right, 3 o'clock.
How about-
3 o'clock.
Okay.
All right, 3 o'clock, 3:30 for you tracker people. You that it sucks to either way.
It doesn't matter. I'm just happy to be here,
And
guys.
maybe James can make it. We, haven't heard from him in a while. Anybody talked to him recently?
Just last night.
Let's see if James is on your distribution list. I'm thinking he's maybe.
I seen about the community center when they have those meetings for streets and roads. I was playing pickleball, the whole group was up there.
Oh, they're meeting, Streets and Roads Committee meets at the community center?
They had 2 meetings there so far that I know.
No, we don't have to meet here because of, stuff.
I mean, they were sitting around in a circle, which I thought was kind of weird, and they were doing something in the middle.
emails on this list, so if you can get him his email.
He's on the Angel Fire Week list. I know he's on that.
But he's not.
Sound like a powwow.
It's like, I had those circles in the middle, and they're all looking at us.
So when she sends out the.
It was team building meeting. He was at a team
Oh, that
building.
was team building?
Yeah,
Yeah, team building.
Who is, the Streets and Roads?
Yeah.
Lenny led that or what? Lenny, Baker led, that's good.
So you have him on your.
He's on there.
Send his email address. to me.
Yeah. Came back undeliverable a few times, so I gotta double check. If it comes back, I'll test it
Okay.
and ask him to respond. If not, I'll, call him and get a better email.
You
That'll work.
hear about Lonnie?
No,
You almost died.
Lonnie?
Do you guys wanna wrap
It's
up?
your death.
Yeah. Anything else for the good of the cause? Meeting adjourned.